Good evening, everybody. Tonight, I have the privilege of introducing you to Martha Saunders, autoimmune protocol diet coach, and also a nutritional therapist. So we will be discussing what the autoimmune protocol diet is all about. And this is the final live discussion for 2024. So I am bringing you a discussion with somebody that have seen the benefits of how diet and lifestyle changes can support you in your autoimmune journey. So I'm looking forward to this discussion with Martha and to let her bring you also hope for healing and encouragement for your journey to health and wellness. So let's see if we can get Martha online. Hey!
Hey, it worked.
Yes, it did. Oh, I'm relieved.
Me too. I wasn't sure.
Yes. Yes. Oh, I'm so sorry about
Oh,
last
it's
week. It
okay.
was a complete
It's
disaster.
technology. It happens.
Yes, unfortunately true.
And especially when
So,
we are literally halfway around the world from each other, right? So,
exactly. I mean, that is the fun part of all these discussions. You get to have discussions with people
I,
from all over,
I
and it's
agree. I
it's
agree. It's
just
fun.
amazing. I love it. So, okay, Martha, I would like you to introduce yourself, say what you are doing, and then we'll get into the discussions.
Okay. Well, hi. Aloha. I'm Martha Saunders, and I live in Hawaii with my husband and son, and I am a nutritional therapy practitioner and an AIP certified coach. And AIP means autoimmune protocol. And we'll talk about it more, but it's a protocol that helps people with autoimmune disease. And so I have an online course that helps teach you how to utilize the autoimmune protocol. And I have a few other things too. We can talk about that, but that's kind of what we're mainly here to talk about tonight. So autoimmune disease is rampant, and it's a huge percentage of the population. Um, and I don't know, it depends on which list you look at, but there's between 100 and 140, possibly more, autoimmune diseases. So
Yes.
yeah, it's horrible.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Martha. So, Martha, I want to start off with asking you to share your testimony of how and why you got involved with the autoimmune protocol diet.
Yeah, sure. So, well, I guess to go back to the very beginning, when I was a teenager, I think I had endometriosis, which is an autoimmune disease. But no one ever diagnosed that as an autoimmune disease. All the, OBGYNs and doctors, fertility doctors that I saw in my lifetime, um, no one ever said anything. I had pretty severe endometriosis. It prevented me from ever actually getting pregnant. And, I just suffered with it because I didn't know there was anything you could do to help it. And then when I was in my early 50s, we were moving. My husband was changing jobs. We were moving to a different state, selling our house. I was homeschooling our son. I was just at the beginning entering menopause. And so I had some of those symptoms going on, which is really fun. And I, all of a sudden, literally probably within, I think that, to be honest, I think the symptoms probably started maybe 2 or 3 years before this, but they were kind of irritating and mild, which I've found is very common with autoimmune disease. You're fatigued, your knees hurt a little bit, you're a little bit of brain fog, a little bit of stomach pain maybe for some people, a little bit of rash here and there, but it's never anything that someone can really pin down as a specific disease. I think a lot of people with autoimmune disease suffer for many years with random, weird, small, irritating symptoms that a lot of doctors poo-poo, to be honest, or
Mm-hmm.
don't scream, oh, you have a specific disease. Um, but mine came on fairly acutely in May of 2016, and we were living in a 3-story rental house, and I could not walk up and down the stairs. I My brain fog was horrible, and I'm usually a very fast, quick thinker, and I was like, oh my gosh, what's going on? I'm losing my brain. Like, what's going on? Just the fatigue was overwhelming. And my joint pain, mine is mostly in my hips and knees, was, it limited my life, what I could do. And I thought, this is not normal. I mean, I'm 52, which is, I know, old to a lot of people, but when you're 52, you don't think that's so old. And I thought, I don't want to be like this forever. So I went to my doctor, and I went to my OBGYN because, which I know may seem weird, but because I felt like of my doctors, I felt like she was the one that was the most open-minded. And would listen to me, because my other regular doctor had not listened to me. She just said, lose 10 pounds, take an Advil. And so I just told her, I said, I don't think this is normal. And she's like, no. She's like, some of those symptoms are, menopause, the brain fog and the hair falling out. That's probably menopause. But she said, the joint pain's concerning. So we ran some tests, and we ran a test called the ANA, which is the antinuclear antibody test, and the C-reactive protein, CRP test, which is kind of the inflammation test for your body. Doesn't really give you a lot of details, but it gives you kind of a general place to say, yeah, something's maybe wrong. Yeah. And they were both positive for something being wrong. Okay. And so from there, I had luckily had a few other homeschool mom friends who went to this functional medical MD. And so I made an appointment with him, but it was a couple months till I could get in to see him. So I just started researching, like, what could be wrong with me. And in my blood work, she tested me because of my symptoms for joint pain. She tested me for rheumatoid arthritis. There was a specific test. So there was like a test for rheumatoid arthritis, lupus. Those were negative, but because I had those symptoms, she diagnosed me with mixed connective tissue disease. And which is kind of a weird disease, that it's kind of a 4-in-1. So mine presented kind of as a rheumatoid arthritis, where mine was not in my hands. As a cook, that's a good thing, but mine was more in my hips and my knees. And so we went with that. So before I could even get in to see the functional medical doctor, I started doing research. So my background in my life before being a mom and a homeschool mom was, I was a certified public accountant, and I was an auditor, and I love research and school and studying. And so I used those inquisitive skills, and which is not always a good thing, I'll say, on the internet. Sometimes we self-diagnose, we get freaked out, especially when you read, things like, 80% of people live 10 years with this disease. And I'm like, okay, I don't need to read that. Like, it's, there's some negative stuff out there about autoimmune disease. And sometimes we can get, down some rabbit hole. But in that, I started researching holistic ways to, help autoimmune disease, and natural ways, and those kinds of words. And I came across something called the Autoimmune protocol. Okay. And after reading it, I realized it's basically food. It's basically lifestyle changes. And I thought, well, in my brain, it told me that certainly that couldn't hurt. Like, it's just food and lifestyle changes. I mean, how could that hurt me? So I instantly went 100% on the Autoimmune protocol. And I am not a journaler. Some people, I know journaling can be great. And if you're into that, God love you. I am not one that typically loves to journal things, but I being a curious person, I wanted to track my symptoms and how I thought this would impact me. And so I started tracking just kind of things, how I slept, how I felt, my energy level, the pain, that sort of thing. And had I not seen it on paper, and had my husband honestly not witnessed it, I know he would have never believed me. But in 4 days, my menopause symptoms were basically gone. Wow. My brain fog was gone. My hair stopped falling out. My night sweats stopped. All the hot flashes stopped. That was a huge, beautiful benefit that I didn't even anticipate. And in a few weeks, my autoimmune symptoms of the pain, the joint pain, and the massive fatigue, we're 70% better, in maybe 3 weeks. Wow. So I just kept on that. And by the time I got in to see the functional medical doctor, I was feeling much better. And he was like, yeah, that is exactly what you need to do. Just stay the course and you'll be fine. And that was in 2016. So it was a lifesaver.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so can you tell us, please, what is the autoimmune protocol diet? Because I am very familiar and a very big advocate for the anti-inflammatory diet. And that is how I have helped myself through my journey. And it has meant the world to me. But I do think that there's a lot of similarities, but there seem to be some differences between the anti-inflammatory diet and the autoimmune protocol. So I would like you to explain to us what is the autoimmune protocol.
Okay, so the autoimmune protocol, basically the fundamental idea is that you're removing mass groups of food that
Okay.
cause inflammation
Okay.
or that are hard on the gut. Because the thing about autoimmune disease that's kind of really tricky is that the symptoms present really differently depending on which disease you have.
Mhm.
So, it's just, if you have eczema, of course, you have skin issues. If you have, Hashimoto's, that's a difficult one a lot of times, that gets pushed off for years to be diagnosed because the symptoms can be all over the place. Um, some people have massive fatigue and headaches and just, I don't even know, just don't feel well. I don't know how to explain it, right? Your mood's all over the place, your weight's all over the place. Uh, let's see, rheumatoid arthritis is one, and multiple sclerosis presents very differently, right?
Mm.
So I think that the idea really around the autoimmune protocol is that all autoimmune diseases are a disease of the immune system,
Yes.
right? So basically, your immune system, which is designed to keep you healthy, it gets kind of out of whack, is the easiest way to say it, and confused, and it starts attacking your healthy cells.
Okay.
And it does that for so long, and then you get symptoms. And depending on which cells are being attacked, that's where the symptoms arise. So it's just a weird group of diseases. And I can see why doctors have a hard time diagnosing it, honestly, because, you know, it's just so, it's not so, I have a friend that has multiple sclerosis, and for her, the symptoms were pretty obvious, right?
Mhm.
And it's much easier to diagnose, like, oh, you have multiple sclerosis. Celiac can be one that, people, if they're inquisitive about what they're eating and they're paying attention, they go, oh, every time I eat, wheat, I feel really bad, for several days, sometimes weeks afterwards. Um, so the idea is to remove the mass groups of food that cause inflammation, because all autoimmune diseases are a disease of the immune system and a disease of inflammation, really based in the gut.
Mm.
So it doesn't really matter what the symptoms are. It's that is the basic idea.
Yes.
So when we do that, you have to remove things like grains. Wheat is the worst, but grains. You remove legumes, which, most of us know if you eat too many beans, you kind of have bathroom issues. Some people suffer with that, right? Or gas, right? Um, and so there's huge groups of food that you remove. And the thing that people kind of freak out about is they kind of look at the autoimmune protocol like a diet. Like, this is how I'm supposed to eat forever. Like, people that are vegan or people that are keto or paleo or whatever. That's a diet you want to stay on. A lot of people want to stay on for decades. But the autoimmune protocol is not like that. It is a protocol.
Okay.
It's a healing protocol, and it's meant to be used for short term, like the anti-inflammatory diet for a lot of people. It's not something necessarily that you would even want to be on forever, because
Mm.
some of those foods are healthy, and you'll
Mm.
want to eventually be able to add some foods back just to make life more interesting, to make travel easier, hanging out with friends easier, all of that, right? But you want to eliminate them for a period of time so that your body can heal. So it's really about removing foods that are not nutrient rich, that are difficult on the immune system, cause inflammation, hard to digest, those sorts of things, so that your body can just kind of, as I always tell people, it's like they can go, your body goes, oh, like that. Like, I can relax now. I'm not constantly processing, nightshades or grains or whatnot. So,
Okay.
does that
So,
make
quick
sense?
question. So, do you think that the AIP diet is meant to just manage symptoms, or is it a protocol diet meant to help you? I don't want to say cure, but yeah, heal
Heal. I say
from,
heal because I do believe it
heal
does that.
from,
So
yeah.
yeah, I believe my goal is always to help my clients live as symptom free as possible
Uh-huh.
with with as few prescriptions as possible.
Correct.
And I do believe that the autoimmune protocol helps you not just manage symptoms. My goal is to live symptom free or symptom
Mm-hmm.
less,
Mm-hmm.
um, just using diet and lifestyle. So
Okay.
I think when your body has recovered and healed, and I would say healed because I've seen it with my own eyes and myself, much less clients, um, that you don't, you're not worried about your symptoms every day. And
Yeah.
yes, I agree it's probably not a cure per se because there is no real cure for any autoimmune disease, whether it be through diet, lifestyle, or through pharmaceuticals or surgery. When there is no actual cure, meaning you'll never have it again. But I always tell people when you don't feel like you have the symptoms and you don't think about your symptoms all day, it feels like a cure,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
So,
Yes.
you're not thinking about it every day. Like, oh, I can't do this, or I can't go travel because of that, or I can't go to my kids, soccer game because I have to have the bathroom close by, or whatever.
Yes.
So, to me, it will feel like that. But yes, once you have an autoimmune disease, you have it. You can't unhave it, and
Okay.
you're more likely to have another one.
Yes.
Once you have
I've
one,
heard.
especially when it goes unchecked, you're more likely to get a second one or a third one. So,
Yes. Okay, so a couple of years ago, I listened to a seminar from multiple doctors and so on, and the guy said something really interesting. When it comes to gut health, um, when we do this food intolerance tests, he said, or food allergy testing, and he said if somebody goes and have this test done and they have this long list of foods
yeah.
that you cannot tolerate, he says that is not an indication of an allergy or intolerance. He says that is a clear indication of leaky gut, that your gut is leaking these proteins into your bloodstream, and now because they are foreign particles in the bloodstream, your immune system is meant to be activated and then,
Right.
try to get rid of this
Yeah.
because it's not supposed to be there. And I think with autoimmune disease, I think this is also very common that there's this whole list of things, but eventually at the end that there is an imbalance in the gut. But the question is why? Why is there imbalance in the gut? Now, I've heard a couple of theories as to why there could be autoimmune diseases. You can correct me if I'm wrong with the ones that I'm mentioning. So I've heard that things like viruses or bacteria or even vaccinations can bring about autoimmune diseases. And specifically, if we talk about vaccinations, it is the component where the virus or bacteria, when they grow it, they tend to use eggs and eggshells and
Right.
stuff. So, and then when you are injected with it, that protein that goes into your bloodstream, it makes you sensitive. Your body is, your immune system is reacting, and then it makes you sensitive for this stuff. And then, I mean, that can cause you to have an egg allergy along the line. And then there's things like Epstein-Barr virus. So a
That's a big one that
couple.
causes a lot of stuff. I
Yes. So I've heard that they say that specifically with like Epstein-Barr virus and a couple of other things, is that your body is not really attacking itself. It's trying to attack something that is there, but in the meantime,
Meantime, it gets, yeah,
as it is trying to kill or destroy or remove whatever the foreign particle is,
yeah,
that your own cells are being damaged in the meantime.
correct. And I think it's like one of those things that once it gets turned on and it starts doing that and it starts attacking your healthy cells because it gets confused, it's hard to turn it off.
Mm,
So I think and that's I think what's part of this whole thing that makes it so confusing because there is that aspect of part of it is genetic, And the thing about that is that it is more common that if your parent, usually your mom, because most autoimmune diseases are in women, like 75 or so percent, I think, are women. So let's say your mom or your aunt or someone has an autoimmune disease, you have a high, especially if you're a woman, a higher proclivity to have an autoimmune disease, but not necessarily the same one. So, I've had friends who's, they're my age, or they're generally my age, and maybe they have celiac, but maybe the mom has rheumatoid arthritis, but the daughter has, I don't know, IBS or some other gut issues, So, it's not necessarily always going to be the same thing. So your symptoms aren't the same. So you may be thinking, oh, my mom has rheumatoid arthritis. She has joint pain. So I'm paying attention to make sure I don't get joint pain. I'm watching for it. But yet that's not what comes up for you. What comes up for you is, eczema and a skin rash or the stomach issues or whatnot. So like for me personally, mine presents kind of like RA, but yet it's all based and they're on the same problem in the gut, but I could literally go out and have a pizza and a beer and be fine in the gut. Okay. Like my gut would be fine. Like I don't feel any of my symptoms in my stomach. That makes sense.
Wow. Yeah.
But mine presents more as, maybe the next day I would have joint pain and stairs would be an issue, or getting off the couch would be an issue, or I would have fatigue. So, that's, I think, the confusing thing. And yes, I have seen it, and I've had so probably a third of my practice deals with people under 25. And the biggest percentage of people being diagnosed right now with autoimmune disease is 12 to 19 years old.
Oh, wow.
And I'm super passionate about that because I was freaked out at 52 being diagnosed with a chronic illness, and I thought I'm too young for this. I can't imagine being as a teenager or a college student and being diagnosed with autoimmune disease. That, as a mom of a 20-year-old, that breaks my heart. So I'm super passionate about giving hope to anyone with an autoimmune disease, but in particular, of course, if you're young, I just always want everyone to know there is hope and there is life beyond autoimmune disease. You can recover to be back to your normal self, to your normal energy. You can play soccer, you can travel, you can hang out with friends, all of that. But I've seen a lot of it, especially in the last few years after the virus that we had going around. I've seen a lot of it, especially in young people, present after that, whether it be the vaccine or the virus, I don't know. And it is different in different people. I've seen both, to be honest. I've seen some people have kind of, I have one client that has really like lupus, rheumatoid arthritis issues right after the vaccine. I have some more clients that have autoimmune disease like POTS or fibromyalgia or those sorts of things after having the virus. So it's, I think I've seen it both ways.
Yeah, so I think,
makes it confusing.
Is that not part of the epigenetics where the environmental triggers is changing the expression of the genes?
Yes, for sure.
Yes.
And it's that's what I think is so difficult about all of this, is that you have the genetic component where you may already be predisposed to getting it.
Yes.
Right? That's about a third of your risk. And then I think about a third is, the lifestyle that you lead and the stress that you have, right? And just the products that we use in our body. And then I believe a third of it is the food that we eat.
Yeah.
And, gosh, the food here in America is horrible. I mean, I met with a doctor the other day and was talking with him, and he said, and I quote, "The food we eat is poison." And I thought, finally, a doctor, a regular, not a functional doctor, not a homeopathic doctor, not a naturopath, an actual MD who's an ear, nose, and throat doctor, because he was helping me because I have allergies because it pollinates 24/7 in Hawaii. And so I was trying to is there anything I could do naturally to help my allergies? And he was like, no, it's the food. We just had a whole 10-minute conversation about the food, which was amazing. So I feel that there is an awareness finally around the quality of the food and the chemicals in the food and whatnot. I don't know if that.
I mean, it's something. This is a discussion that people were persistent about, and they made their voices known.
Yes.
So January is coming, and things are going to change. So
Yeah,
I'm
for sure, for
excited.
sure.
I am excited on behalf of all
Yeah, if the
Americans for
food
the change
alone
that's
for me is
coming.
a reason to be excited, right? Exactly. And like just
Yes.
for instance, my son when he was young, he would go to my mom and dad's house
Hmm.
and come home and he would have really red lips, like he had put on lipstick, and
Yeah.
he would have a rash on his back, and I was like,
And you knew
"What
it
are
was
you
gluten.
eating?" No, it was the milk. I think
Oh,
for
for
him it
him,
was,
dairy.
yeah, I think because we only
Oh,
drank organic milk at our house, but he would go to my mom
yeah.
and dad's house and they did not drink organic milk because she really didn't. I mean, at the time we were eating gluten when he was little. We were
Okay.
eating gluten, although it was organic, but it was still gluten. So we pinned it down to being the milk. When I finally thought I think it's the milk, she switched, and once she switched to organic milk, he didn't come home that way anymore. But he would literally have like red lips and a little rash all over his back, and that's kind of when this was years before I was diagnosed, and I that's when I really started to see like, oh, it really
Yeah.
can impact you.
Yes.
Like, you know that in your head,
Yes.
right? But when you see it in your child, you're like, okay, wow, yeah,
Exactly. Exactly. Now, the reason why I say gluten is because that is exactly what happened to my kids when they got
interesting.
gluten. Yes. So, I
Yeah,
mean,
and
there was,
gluten is
there
the
was,
number one food. When you have an autoimmune disease, gluten is by far the
yes,
number one food that is a concern.
absolutely. Absolutely. So when my kids were little, I took them off of gluten and dairy and everything, and I packed them the most amazing lunch boxes and everything. But when all the other friends in class are getting like a packet of
Yep,
chips and cookies and
yep,
chocolate milk
yep.
and so on,
I know.
they start swapping around. And they were not allowed to, but they still did. And then the days that they came home with that little red rash
Yep.
here and then on the arms, I'm like, did you swap
What
food with
are you
somebody?
eating? Yeah.
Yes. And then like, how do you know? And it was, I
Yes.
never told him until I think a couple of months ago. And I'm like, you know what? That times that you used to ask, I'm like, yeah, I knew exactly
Yep.
when you were sharing
That's right.
food.
And my son now, like I said, now he's 20, and I can always tell when he's had too much sugar
Hmm.
because even at 20, his body can only process so much sugar, especially if it's like high fructose corn syrup
Yeah.
because he's had a soda
Yes.
somewhere. And I can
Yes.
always tell because he makes this little noise
Okay.
that's like, I don't know, I can't even do it. But it's the sugar noise, basically.
Okay.
I'm like, oh, you've had soda today. And he's like, yeah, I know.
Wow. Yeah. It's
So our bodies
amazing the
are
way it
really smart, right?
manifests.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I
It's
think our
really
bodies are super
amazing how it.
smart and we need to listen.
Yes. So, and I think this is the important thing that I also would like people to understand is that you need to get to know your body. How
Yes.
is your body presenting with XYZ?
Right. And
Because
everyone is
all
different. And
exactly.
like ghee, I'll tell you, a friend, she's an autoimmune, she's an AIP coach. She can't
Mhm.
eat ghee. Ghee
Oh,
is
wow.
basically just the oil from butter, right? The milk
Yes.
solids are removed, but even
Yes.
that bothers her. I know someone who can't eat raspberries. I myself, if you look at the allergy chart, I'm supposedly intolerant to iceberg lettuce, which is like 99% water.
Water.
So
Yeah.
I think our bodies are crazy. And if you look at it from the perspective of being curious and being a
Hmm.
detective, I always think it's fun. And so on the autoimmune protocol, you remove the groups of foods, right? You eat that way for 30 to 90 days, and then you slowly reintroduce what's considered generally healthy foods,
Hmm.
right? So white rice, or maybe, coffee or green beans, that sort of thing. And as you reintroduce, then you're listening to your body, you're watching for a
Yes.
symptom. So it is a
Yes.
very slow, tedious process. And I honestly feel like the reintroduction phase, for me personally, was way more painful than just doing the autoimmune protocol full out, because you're just like eating a little bite and you're waiting for something to happen. And so I feel
Yes.
like that's kind of
And
tedious.
sometimes it can take up until 48 hours.
Oh, for
And
sure.
then you don't know what was it now that I ate that caused
Yes.
the symptom. And
And then
it
it's
takes
also like, oh, was I stressed
multiple.
because I had an exam, or did I
Yes.
not sleep well because my teenager was up, or I had an argument with my spouse or whatever, and so
Yes.
all those things can matter too. So it is a little bit of
Absolutely.
you're not 100% sure, but the idea obviously is to remove the foods, let your body settle, let
Yeah.
it recover, and I would say kind of heal,
Hmm.
not cure, and then slowly reintroduce foods that are generally considered healthy and watch for reaction. And in my experience, most people do. It's funny you mentioned eggs, because because eggs are healthy. I mean, I think most of us in this realm, in this industry, would agree eggs are super healthy foods, right? But when you have an autoimmune disease, they're really one of the foods you should not eat for a period of time and let your body settle. And we talked about eggs. So eggs and nightshades, or in general tomatoes, I would argue, or white potatoes, are foods that generally are healthy. I mean, right? They're fruits, vegetables, eggs. But our bodies, when you have autoimmune disease, have a really hard time processing those foods. And so when you've taken them out for 2 months, say, and you reintroduce it and you test it, a lot of times people react to it. And that's when they go, oh, wow, I do react. Because, they don't think they do. Like, I eat eggs every day. Like, I work with athletes. So especially like high school and college level athletes, a lot of times. And so they need all those, so a lot of like, eggs are a thing, right? They're part of their normal everyday diet. They'll have a 3-egg omelet with whatever. And I'm like, I know, I hate to tell you have to take eggs out because they're super healthy, but you need to take eggs out. And then just, even if you do it for 3 weeks, just take them out. It doesn't have to be 3 months. And they almost always react to it. So,
wow.
It's not that you can't ever introduce them again. It's just maybe your body has not healed enough to consume them, or maybe you can't consume them every day. So,
okay. All right. So I have a list here.
Yes.
That it was quite daunting when I saw it. I really feel sorry for people that have to go this route, because if I look at the anti-inflammatory diet, I mean, I would say it's very basic form of the autoimmune protocol. But when I looked at this, I thought to myself, how in the world can somebody actually keep up with this? But I mean, if you are like really desperate and you need answers, you'll do anything.
That's how I felt.
So
I was willing to do anything to feel better.
Because you've tried medications and nothing is working, and this is like your last hope. And then you're willing to try anything. So I just want to read some of the things on the list. So you spoke of gluten. Now, gluten we know is a major one with any autoimmune disease. It's not just thyroid or celiac. It is all autoimmune diseases. Then grains. So no gluten, no grains, no legumes, no dairy, no sugar, no alcohol.
And let me just stop you to say, when you say legumes, people don't realize that's chocolate and coffee. I mean, right? They are beans.
Yes, I was about to get to that.
That's always the one that people don't. They're like, wait, I can't have coffee? What do you mean I can't have coffee?
Yes. Now, in my anti-inflammatory diet, I also warn against coffee because of there is something about coffee. And now I've been corrected in the past by somebody. I thought it was the proteins that were similar. Now, apparently it's not. But there's something else about coffee which is similar to gluten. So for people who have a sensitivity to gluten, they very likely have a sensitivity to coffee as well. So, but unfortunately, I've not gone back to go find what is the real connection between the two. Anyway, okay, so then it says avoid eggs, avoid nightshade vegetables, such as peppers, eggplants, tomatoes. And they have been particularly inflammatory, causing joint pains, skin irritations, and gut discomfort. Right, and then here is the worst one of all. Avoid all nuts and seeds. I'm like, my gosh.
And they're so
in the
healthy,
anti-inflammatory diet, we use specific nuts and seeds to reduce inflammation. And here it says nuts and seeds are high in anti-nutrients such as lectins and phytates. And they are one of the most allergenic types of foods and can cause sensitivities in people struggling with autoimmunity. So this was a real big surprise to me. I didn't know this about the autoimmune protocol. I was quite surprised because, I mean, there's nuts like the walnut or pistachio or pecan nuts. They are very healthy. But yes, I assume this is just the temporary part. And then once you clear out all of that inflammatory components that can come from Because I think the moment that the body is weakened and anything can irritate it and anything can add
Even
inflammation.
healthy foods, right? I totally
Yes.
agree.
Well, these are all healthy foods.
Right, exactly. Yep.
So, and then you remove all of this just to calm down the irritation, calm down the inflammation. And then it seems like it's 30 to 60 days that you
Yeah.
do the autoimmune protocol, and then you
Yeah.
start to reintroduce.
Yeah. I mean, I've had a lot of clients do it 30-ish days.
Mm-hmm.
I've had clients do it 90 days or even more. It really depends. I always tell people when you're about 75, 80% better, when your symptoms are 75, 80% gone, that's the time you could probably consider doing reintroductions. But until then, your body is still, you know, recovering, right? So you don't want to do it too soon. You don't want to
Yes.
do it because, oh, I felt good today, so I'm good, and I'm going to start reintroductions. No, you want to wait at least 30 days,
Yes.
in my opinion.
Yeah.
60, 90 is potentially better, especially, and I will say, especially if you're older, you've been sick for years, your body is not typically going to recover as quickly. Now, if I'm working with someone who's 17 years old and they've only felt sick for a year, personally, first of all, we have a little bit different modified autoimmune protocol for them.
Okay.
Like they usually can have ghee and white rice and lentils because they are younger, they haven't been sick as long, they need the nutrients way more because they're still growing. But they usually are really seeing mass improvements in like 30 days.
Wow.
So I rarely have a person under 25 who needs to stay on the autoimmune protocol more than 30 days.
Wow. Okay.
So,
That is impressive.
yeah.
Okay. And then the last two things that it says to avoid, and then this is things like, I don't even know if I'm going to pronounce it correctly, so forgive me.
No, that's fine.
Guar gum and the carrageenan.
Yeah.
So I think guar gum isn't that the things that they put in like gluten-free foods to thicken it and help it bind?
Yeah, and also too, you can even find that in yogurts. You can find it
Yes.
in like nut milks, that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So the idea, right? It's a gum. Like both of those are thickeners. So it's just hard on your whole digestive system. So the
Yes.
idea of the autoimmune protocol is we want to make it as nutrient rich, and as easy to digest, right?
Yes.
So if you're having nuts, if you're having legumes, if you're having gums, that's just sludging up your whole digestive tract. And it makes it really hard to digest all the other foods you are consuming, like all the vegetables and the, beef or whatever. So it's just about removing those things and staying away from them. Now, I guess I should preface this to say that there's a lot of different theories out there, and every AIP coach is going to have their own opinion and their own experience. But I don't know. It's hard. If you feel really, really sick and you've been sick for years, I would say try to be as close to 100% on the autoimmune protocol as you can. Okay. But, with that, there's a caveat. You have to live. Part of the autoimmune protocol is about lifestyle, right? It's not all food. It's about better sleep. It's about moving every day. It's about joy and laughter and just taking time for yourself and not being overwhelmed and not worried about being perfect. And so there is that balance of, you have to be able, especially again, I work with a lot of younger people and they're like, I want to go out with my friends, so it's about finding that balance of if going out with your friends and being able to do stuff brings you joy, right? That helps you heal and be healthy. Then we want to make sure we balance that. So it's about finding restaurants that you can modify to have those close to the AIP as possible. But obviously, unless you're going to cook it at home from scratch every single meal, you're never going to be 100% perfect AIP. If you go to any restaurant, it's going to be very difficult to be,
Yes.
100%
Yes. I mean,
AIP.
just even if we just look at the oil perspective,
Right.
that's
Or
going to make it
pepper.
almost
They put pepper
impossible.
on black pepper on stuff, and that's not AIP because it's pepper. So there's a lot of spices that are not AIP. So it's simple things like that. But it's about being as close to 100%, as you can. And there's a lot of AIP coaches that would argue 80-20 is fine. As long as you're 80% autoimmune protocol and 20%, you have white rice, you definitely wouldn't want to be having gluten and, a soda, right? A bunch of sugar. But, and I would agree with that.
Yeah.
Especially if you live a life I worked with one client she traveled at least 3 weeks a month. And that made it very difficult, as you can imagine, and she's in airports and she's traveling and she's working and she's single, so of course cooking for one is harder too, and it made it hard. So there's always that balance of, it's better to do the best you can, even if
Mm.
that's 80%, than to just be like, "Ugh, it's too hard, never mind, I'm not going to do it." Right?
Yeah. As long as the other 20% isn't gluten and sugar and
Yeah, like
all
the
the things
really bad,
yes, the things
the
that you
really
should
bad, but the
really,
bad.
really
Yeah,
stay away from.
yeah,
So
yeah.
I think usually, I mean, I'm thinking now from the anti-inflammatory diet, usually the three things that you are highly encouraged to stay away from is gluten, dairy, sugar.
Yeah,
Now, I can technically add a fourth one, and that is the inflammatory oils as well.
yeah. I would agree with that. And because I live in Hawaii, and Hawaii is by far and away the most Asian population of any state in the United States. I think I read like 62% of our population is of Asian descent. So soy is a huge food in
Huge.
Hawaii.
Ouch.
And you can't go
Yes.
anywhere and
Can
not
imagine.
find soy products. Every restaurant has shoyu or soy sauce, and tofu is everywhere, and edamame, and so there's just, soy is a really big thing. And so I think it's about being aware of
Yeah.
soy as well. For me here, I would say,
Okay. Good.
or if
No,
you're of
but soy
Asian, if you like Asian food or of Asian
is
descent. So
I mean, it's everywhere because I think the love for Asian foods
yeah,
has really spread across the
yeah,
globe. And you, in every single store that you go, you'll find your Asian food section.
yeah,
And people love it because, I mean, it boosts
so
flavors. It's
good.
like
Yeah,
these nice, refreshing flavors. Your food is not
yes.
as heavy. You don't feel like
It
so
is a
sluggish
lot of
when you're done with
vegetables.
a
So
meal.
a lot of, and I agree, a lot of Asian food I think is very healthy because it's a lot of vegetables. A lot of
Yeah.
Asian cultures really focus on vegetables first, and meat is included, but it's smaller amounts and higher qualities.
Mm.
Um, but I feel like, most restaurants here, there's just soy. And so I would argue that soy is definitely not one of the top three, like you were saying, but it's definitely not something you'd want to consume every day.
Yes.
So,
So years ago, when I started with all this, because my daughter has ADHD, and so I used diet and lifestyle changes to navigate through that. And one of the things that I saw that they recommended, if you cannot have soy, because soy also I think the soy sauce contains gluten, if I'm not mistaken.
well, it can, and it also at most is a really high glyphosate food, so it's
Yes,
sprayed. So it's one of
yes,
the most sprayed foods.
yes, one
So that's a
of the
whole
most
other
for crops.
component that's a problem. Yeah.
Yes. And I was recommended to use coconut aminos
Yes.
instead. And
Yes.
okay, I must say honestly, I have
Changed my
discovered
life.
a love for something I
Same.
never knew existed, and I make sure it's in my house at all
All the
times.
time. Same.
I mean, if you think MSG is good in elevating flavors, try coconut
I agree.
aminos. That stuff is great.
It is great. I agree. I love it. And remember when I found Siete Foods was the brand I liked. They do like the whole Mexican flavors. Well, I grew up in California, so I love the whole Mexican food flavors. And
Yeah.
I found them, and then I found coconut aminos, and I was like, oh, finally, food I can enjoy that brings back the
Yes.
flavors that I love.
Yes.
So yeah, I think there is often a workaround, and in my practice, what I do sometimes is I'll do grocery store walks with clients if they live here on
Mm-hmm.
island. And so we'll go to the grocery store and walk around and talk about foods and talk about what you can upgrade to, or products that you can change, and how to read the labels and things I'm looking for in the labels and that sort of thing. And that's always fun to do with clients. So,
Okay. All right. So let's quickly have a look at all right, so we have slightly touched on how long somebody should do the diet. It seemed like it's around 30 to 60 days, depending on the person,
mm-hmm.
and definitely longer depending on how long you've already suffered as well,
Yeah,
and how well you are healing.
I agree.
And then let's see here. Okay, and then there is like specific foods that we should refrain from long term. So what is your list to when you have a client and you tell them, okay, you do this diet for, let's say, 60 days, 90 days, but after that,
Mm-hmm.
what are the foods that you recommend them to still refrain from?
Okay, I would say in general, gluten, especially here in America, where it's all sprayed with, it's all hybridized and GMO'd and sprayed with glyphosate. Um, I unless you have celiac or severe gut issues, like where you feel it, you have to go to the bathroom all the time, I would say you potentially could periodically add back traditional sourdough bread if you really
Mhm.
love gluten. And I mean, I'm a pastry chef, trained pastry chef, so of course I love my gluten. So that's something that I have started dabbling with is real sourdough products, but not every day for
Yes.
sure. Maybe twice a month. Uh, Sugar, general sugar. Now, there's different kinds of sugar in your body. Yes, sugar may be sugar,
Hmm.
but coconut sugar or maple syrup or honey are different in your body than, yeah, regular, beet sugar or high fructose corn syrup or something
Yeah.
like that. So I definitely would opt for the cleaner versions, and I would
Mhm.
totally stay away from those other versions because they're all not the healthiest foods. Let's be honest; they're all somewhat inflammatory, but the high fructose corn syrup and those are going to be way more dangerous for your body and inflammatory. So I avoid those types of sugars, and I would tell people to always avoid those types of sugars. Um, and then, of course, it's just the reintroduction phase. Like when you did the reintroductions, whatever food your body reacted to is one
Mhm.
that potentially it may always react to some degree. Like for me personally, even now, all these years later and all this healing later, if I eat too many tomatoes, I know it. I can feel it on my
Okay.
hips, my cheeks go red, my arms go red, they flush. So I can have a little bit, but too much is too much. And
Okay.
that's okay. And I just know that's my body and that's what we work with. So
Awesome.
I feel like there's that respect for the fact that each of us is different and all of our bodies are different, our journeys are different, and our genetics are different, right? What we come from, who we come from. So we need to respect that and listen to that. Um, and I think that the oils, I would agree with you, even though technically it's probably not one of the ones on the list that a lot of people would say that we need to worry
Hmm.
about. I feel like the quality of the oils that we consume are a huge issue. So, canola oil, safflower oil, sunflower oil, those sorts of oils are really
Mm.
inflammatory. And if we can try to consume mostly, I know I can't say all because, if you eat at a restaurant, you're consuming those. So, if you at home only ever use olive oil, avocado, tallow, lard, ghee, you're going to be way ahead of the game.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I fully agree. Okay. Um, Lifestyle changes. What lifestyle changes do you encourage people to practice when they go AIP as well? I mean, you mentioned a couple earlier,
Yeah.
but let's just give a section for this.
Okay. So my uh, personal opinion is that most people with an autoimmune disease, well, the vast majority are women, as we know.
Hmm.
And most of the women that I know that have autoimmune diseases are super high functioning, well educated, type A, OCD, overachievers, the doers of the world.
Okay.
And I think if we can pull back on some of that, it's really helpful. So it's about finding time to be calm, be quiet, to be mindful, to pray, to meditate, wherever you find that peace, to do
Mm.
that. It's about making time to be still in whatever way that works for you and brings you actual joy and peace. To find time to do something physical. And since I do work with a lot of athletes, I work with really intense personalities that, they want to train a lot. And
Yes.
so it can be hard for them when you mention, oh, you need to do some yoga or take a stroll, not run a marathon, right? Not run 20
I
miles.
can
You
imagine.
need to walk 2 miles instead of running 20. And they look at me like, are you insane? Right? So I kind of make this bet, like, well, just give me a week or give me a couple days here and there and try it and see if you don't feel
Mm.
better. So I feel like it's getting out of our own way. Like you've been doing
Okay.
this for years and now
Okay.
you're feeling like crap and
Yeah.
you're in pain every day and you're uncomfortable all the time. You have all these whatever symptoms. So you need to try to do something different. And it is not just the food. I mean, people so often focus on the food, and the food is a huge part. And it is probably more than 50%. But I have known people to do perfect AIP, like as close to 100% as possible, and yet still not really feel really well. And then they're like, oh, maybe I really, okay, fine, I give up. Maybe I should do yoga. Fine. Maybe I should sleep more than 5.5 hours a night. Fine. Maybe and so then they'll, oh yeah, that does work. And so I feel like we have to have respect for the fact that what we're doing lifestyle wise really does matter.
Yes.
And in that, I would argue that it's even the personal care products, that we're using, the shampoos we're using, the lotion that we're using,
Okay.
How we live in our house. Like, do we have 3 pets, and do we have carpet, and do, we have the windows closed all the time, and we have a lot of allergens and those sorts of things. Like all of that, that's what's I think so hard about autoimmune disease is, in general, is it's just so many different things that make up your symptoms.
Okay.
So focusing on the lifestyle can be huge. And I always tell people, I like to give a lot of information, as obviously the talker. So I always give people a lot of information, and focusing on the parasympathetic state, which is just basically calming your whole system, like prior to eating.
Yes.
So not eating in the drive-through, right? Not eating on the go, in your car, at your desk, at work, standing in the kitchen. Not eating while you're watching TV. So being present. Like, eat like your grandparents ate, right? Your grandparents sat at a table. They took a moment, usually in my family, to pray before a meal. But whatever, if you're not into praying, just be thankful that you have a meal to eat.
Exactly.
Someone, either yourself or someone else, prepared it for you. Take a breath and just eat. And eat calmly, relax. Don't chew too fast. Don't chew not enough. You want to
Don't
make sure
cause arguments around the dinner table.
Don't cause arguments. Don't be on your phone.
Yes.
Right. You want to be calm and appreciate what you're doing. You are providing nutrition for your body, and through that gives you life, right? So you want to just chill. I feel like all of that, just lots of little things you can do in a day, really make a difference. I'm one that I guess I would say I probably never have had fabulous sleep. I used to have insomnia back in the day when I was an auditor. And so for me, always, even now, I do things to focus on sleep. I make sure I sleep in a really dark room. I make sure I turn the air conditioner down. I put an eye mask on. I focus on it being quiet in the house. I do the little things I can do to make sure that I'm helping the fact that I can actually sleep, because sleep is when your body really heals.
Yes.
So it's super important. If you're tired in the afternoon and you can, take a nap, even if it's 20 minutes. Don't think, oh, I'm lazy because I took a nap, right?
Yeah. Every bit counts.
Every bit counts. And every little decision you make, again, I tell clients, you did not get sick because you had French fries last week. You did not get sick because, you worked out too hard, or, you did something 1 or 2 times, right? It was not something that you did once or twice that caused this.
Yeah.
It is a lot of decisions made, usually for years.
Yes.
And it's a lot of genetics and things you can't help. Yes. And that's how you got here. So it's not going to be one thing that fixes it, right?
Yes. And also it's not going to be one pill that fixes it, because I think
exactly.
I mean, if I look at the autoimmune protocol diet, I think it's a very daunting task to get into, and I think you need to be mentally prepared to commit and say, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to get into it, and I'm going to do it for myself. And I think I would argue to say maybe the older generations, the way that they have been trained is that there's a pill for every ill.
Yeah. Correct.
And that it's easier to just go and take a pill than to put in the effort to do this. And I think if we can just show people that there's hope and that there is healing available, your body does the healing. You just need to
get out of the
remove the things that's causing weaknesses and providing it with the nutrients it needs, the minerals, the vitamins, the phytonutrients, and everything it needs in order to repair. And that is where sleep comes in, because we utilize utilize all of that during sleep, and that is when we repair.
I agree.
So, okay, great. This was all fantastic. We are coming to the end of our discussion. I want us to end the discussion by bringing hope, because this is, like I told you
Yeah.
before, this is my heart. I
Oh,
want to bring hope for healing to all the listeners. Now, you've shared your testimony. Do you have one or two clients' testimonies that you can just like shortly share, that will pack a punch? That they suffered this and they've gone on this journey and they've seen great benefits.
yeah. I feel like, I have a younger client that is a college athlete, and it's so hard, right? By the time you get to be a college athlete, you have worked for years in your sport to get to where you are, to get the scholarship, to be at that level, and it takes a lot of effort. And so when all of a sudden your body is not allowing you to function at where the level you have used to and you need in order to maintain and reach your goals, it's really overwhelming. So I have loved working with clients like that, who finally, in a few short weeks will have, usually I would say it's the energy and the stamina is what they're, all of them, no matter where they are, that's one thing they focus on. Yes, there might be stomach pain or joint pain or whatever also, but overall for them, it's the stamina, the lack, of energy, and having to not worry about being fatigued every single day, is really lovely, because I am not an athlete. I never was big into sports, but I can appreciate, the effort it takes to get to that level. So I love when they'll DM me or, email me and say, oh, I had a race or I had this. And, I was able to do my best and I actually improved my time or whatever. That really makes me happy. For others, I feel like, as like I say, I have clients that are moms. I feel like it's kind of the same thing. It's that fatigue. It's that feeling like I can't do everything I want, or I'm a professional and I have not been able to succeed at my career. And I'm concerned that this is going to cripple me, basically, right? Because they can no longer work like they need to in order to hold their job down. And that's a huge concern, obviously, as an adult. When you are in bed because you are in such pain and feeling so poorly that you can't go to work, and then you can't, go grocery shopping and do laundry and help your kids and go to baseball games or soccer games, whatever like that. You just can't be a mom. That's a whole other. And as a mom, that's a whole other thing. Like that's a horrible feeling. So it always makes me feel good. And I always tell my clients, there is no one pill, there is no one shot, there is no one surgery that will heal any and truly cure any autoimmune disease. So my goal always is to help you do whatever we can that's the more holistic and natural, to support your body so that it can do all those things, naturally as possible,
Yes.
so that you can live and you can have your old life back, whatever that looked like, right? I, I mean, there is hope. I've never had a client not have some level of success on the autoimmune protocol.
Wow.
And they've all done
Awesome.
it differently. I mean, they've all done it differently. They all have, some are kids, and some are adults, and some are single, and some have families. And so all of us have our own story.
Yeah.
But what's powerful to me after so many years of doing this is that it clearly works. And, there's different ways of doing it. You can go all in and you can do it 100%. Like yesterday you ate normal and today you're autoimmune protocol, or you can wean yourself. And that's kind of what I typically suggest. But again, it's personal choice, however you want to work it.
Okay, that is fantastic. Thank you. So, okay, I'm thinking of, I've made a food intolerance journal a couple of months ago. And I'm thinking, if there's anybody that has been listening or listening to this discussion, just send me a DM and I will send you the thing that you can download. You can print it out, and then you can. It's just going to be a one page, but you can print it out a million times if you need to, and then you can journal, because it's a really easy way to journal.
Yep.
You can surround the areas where you experience pain. You can jot down your experiences, and if you do this over multiple weeks, you can track back and see where is the link with all the stuff. So this is one way that I can support you in helping you get to know your body. Where is the areas that you experience these weaknesses? Where is the hidden trigger that you're experiencing? Is it something in what you are doing? Is it something in what you're eating? What is going on? And I mean, even if you think of emotional well-being, these are highly influenced
Yes.
by our gut health and our
For
immune
sure.
system as well.
For sure.
So even if people are experiencing mental health problems, these can also be supported by the autoimmune
Oh, for
protocol
sure.
diet.
And I feel like they're definitely related because, you know, I mean, just think whenever you are sick or you're not feeling well, it impacts your emotional, you know,
Absolutely.
levels, right? And
Yeah.
your outlook on life and how you react to people and your, you know, shortness of your temper, right? All of those
Yeah.
things matter. And I've told my son, I wish I had eaten like this when he was young because
Yes.
he is full throttle. He's a lovely human being, but he is a full throttle, very tenacious human being.
Mm.
And you know, when I was sick and not feeling well, there was a couple of years where I know I was not the mom that I wanted to be because
Yes.
I
I
did not have the
understand.
energy nor the patience to put up with it. And I was just like, oh, you're wearing me out, you know? And I apologized. And he's like, oh, it's fine. You know, he doesn't care.
Oh,
But, you know, I think it's about, gosh, what could we have done? What could we be
yes.
doing? And not letting society or doctors sadly tell you, oh, it's no big deal. Oh, you don't have anything. Oh, don't worry about it. Oh, there's nothing you can do. Or the worst is when they say it doesn't matter what you eat. There's nothing you can eat that'll matter. And I just hate that. It drives me
Yes.
crazy. Like,
Absolute
of course it
bogus.
matters. Of course it
Yes.
matters, right?
Yes.
So I feel like there is so much hope. And I go back to my fundamental thought when I first came across the autoimmune protocol was, well, it's just food and it's just some lifestyle changes. Like, what could it hurt? And I
Mm.
feel like I'm so grateful that I thought, what the heck, I'll just try it because that changed everything for me, you know.
Okay, perfect. Perfect. Well, Martha, thank you so very much. I just lastly want to once again say to anybody that has listened to this entire discussion, and if you need the support where you feel that you want to start tracking your symptoms, please send me a DM and I will send you this free download, and you can start tracking your symptoms and then start making the adjustments necessary to make. And for those who want to have an AIP coach to help them through the journey, and especially if you are 25 or younger, Martha Saunders is definitely somebody you would like to contact, and she's been through it herself, and she's now an AIP coach to help you through the journey as well. So everyone, thank you very much. This is our last discussion for 2024, and thank you for your time. And Martha, thank you for your time, and
You're
thank you for the
welcome. Thank
blessing
you for
that of
having me. I
sharing
really
all your
appreciate it.
knowledge.
Of
You're
course. Thank
welcome.
you,
Thank
Katie.
you very much.
Appreciate it.
Okay, have a good night.
All right, you too. Aloha.
Thanks. Bye. Aloha.
Bye.
Bye.